why the hell would 8 Western banks be stepping on the price of silver to this degree, concentrated to the degree of more than any commodity ever traded in the history of the COMEX market? 8 banks in silver. And this is what is happening as a result of it. Here's the LBMA. They have 800 million ounces, right? 800 million ounces of which 500 belong to the ETF. So they have 300 million ounces. They admit to trading 292 million ounces a day, which is 10 times understated by their own admission. 2.9 billion. They're trading 10 times the float. Now, here's the crazy thing. In the month of August, 8.1% of that float, 25 million ounces, were delivered off of the LBMA. How many more months can we see massive deliveries?
Leading silver importers in India have reported a doubling of the country's silver imports in 2024 due to rising demand from solar panel and electronics makers and investors betting on the gray metal to give better returns than gold in the bull market. Silver prices are already closing in on their highest price in over a decade. At the same time, the world's biggest silver consumers, India and China, are either recording record-high imports or sourcing unrefined silver in South American countries to stay under the radar. In 2023, India imported 3,625 metric tons of silver. Importers expect that to increase to at least 7,000 tons this year, due to rising industrial demand, and climb even higher in 2025. According to renowned bullion dealer and Miles Franklin president Andy Schectman, countries like India and China are using the Western suppression of the silver market to buy more silver than at any other point in history in preparation for the endgame. This endgame, according to Andy, is the moment these countries finally band together to completely depart from the Western-backed fiat system, which at the time is completely dominated by the US dollar, and embrace a resource-backed financial system that is free from the constant manipulation, currency devaluation, and the dominance by the US and other Western countries. Andy believes that when this moment arrives, the 8 bullion banks that have helped suppress silver prices will suffer substantial losses as silver prices skyrocket almost overnight. During a recent discussion with Mario Ineco, another respected metals analyst, on the Maneco 64 YouTube channel, Andy outlines the intricate layers of silver market manipulation, starting from as high as the US government and spreading to the military-industrial complex, bullion banks, exchanges like the LBMA and COMEX, and involving even the trusted Silver Institute. Andy also discusses how this manipulation is gradually coming to an end with the recent awakening of countries like India, Russia, and China. We will present clips from Andy Schectman's interview, but before we do, please take a little time to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notifications bell for more videos like this. We appreciate the support and hope you enjoy the video.
Look, you see India's imports increased from 560 tons last year in the first 6 months, which was a massive year for them, up to 4,554 tons so far in 2024 in the first 6 months. That's a 7-fold increase over last year. You see China flying around, as I mentioned, buying up all the concentrate in the doré in unrefined fashion from the Latin American miners and sending it back to China to have it refined and taken off of the marketplace in a very opaque way. You're seeing metal on the London Metals Exchange trading right now. They admit to trading 290 million ounces a day, but admit that on the LBMA that those numbers are 10 times understated, which means they're trading as much as 2.9 billion ounces of silver per day, or 3.5 times annual global mine supply. This is quite an effort to keep the price held down. At the same time, the biggest money in the world is going all around the globe, buying all that they can, importing all that they can. And I find it interesting that, you know, we're going to have another structural deficit over 200 million ounces between supply and demand, mine supply and demand. And, you know, again, you're talking about not a peep. Yeah, there isn't a peep, but can I share my screen with you by chance? I want to show you
Yeah,
something.
sure. Hold on a second. Let me,
I
yeah,
want to show you
go ahead.
something that I think is one of the reasons why we are seeing what we are with silver. My buddy John Little is a heck of a researcher, and I owe a lot of this information to him. But take a look here. This was, if you Google this, you'll see S.2768, October 14th, 1942, a bill to authorize the use for war purposes of silver held or owned by the United States. And just this first paragraph, the present consumption of silver for war purposes is at the rate of about 100 million ounces a year and is growing rapidly. According to the War Production Board, it is only a matter of months before war demands will increase sufficiently to require at least 200 million ounces of silver per year. A presentation 2 years ago at Jay Martin's Vancouver Resource Investment Conference where I said there's roughly 500 ounces in the tip of a Tomahawk cruise missile, silver. And a man came up to me after the presentation. He says, I work for the Department of Defense. He says, I helped design the Patriot missile and the Tomahawk. He says, I think there is silver in it. I just don't know how much. I'll get back to you. Great. Never heard from him again. I go back this year in January, earlier this year, and I gave a different speech, and there he was with a bunch of pictures in his hand. Said, listen, this is all declassified. Don't worry. He was showing me how they had a challenge of shooting the Tomahawk vertically. It was originally designed to come out of a torpedo tube and all sorts of stuff. He says, you know what? You're right. There's between 13 and 14 kilograms in the tip of a Tomahawk. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, that's cool. I'm glad it was validated. And in all of this high-tech weaponry and aerospace, stealth fighters, and all of the missiles that are used that have guidance systems in them, silver is needed. And so this is 1942. They say we need up to 200 million ounces. Well, look at this. This is the numbers out of the Silver Institute. Here are the demand numbers. Here's the 265 million shortfall, and here are the demand numbers. Industrial, 9%. Electrical and electronics, 9%, of which photovoltaics, that's solar panels, 20%. Brazing, alloy, and solders, 3%. Other industrial, 9%. Photography, -3%. Jewelry, 4%. Silverware, 7%. Well, where the hell is military? Now,
It's no news that some of the largest commercial banks in the U.S., Bank of America, Citibank, J.P. Morgan, Goldman Sachs, HSBC, and at least 3 others, are shorting silver in a highly concentrated manner. They hold the largest short position ever seen in any commodity market, specifically targeting the minuscule silver market. Most of these activities are recognized as unethical and sometimes downright illegal, but allowed to go on freely because they benefit the war machine of the U.S. government. This is the conclusion that Andy and other experts have arrived at after years of observing important market trends and developments. These activities are going on with the full cooperation of exchanges like COMEX and the LBMA, which has admitted to trading 292 million ounces of silver daily, understated by a factor of 10, despite having only a float of 300 million ounces in its inventories, with another 500 million ounces belonging to ETFs. More importantly, investors are now standing for delivery. So, it's only a matter of time before the entire game is up. Every aspect of this decade-long manipulation will be revealed when that moment comes, and silver prices will easily assume their true value. Let's get back to Andy's video.
a current chart from Gold Charts R Us and ask yourself, why the hell would 8 Western banks be stepping on the price of silver to this degree, concentrated to the degree of more than any commodity ever traded in the history of the COMEX market? 8 banks in silver. And this is what is happening as a result of it. Here's the LBMA. They have 800 million ounces, right? 800 million ounces of which 500 belong to the ETF. So they have 300 million ounces. They admit to trading 292 million ounces a day, which is 10 times understated by their own admission. 2.9 billion. They're trading 10 times the float. Now, here's the crazy thing. In the month of August, 8.1% of that float, 25 million ounces, were delivered off of the LBMA. How many more months can we see massive deliveries? I'll stop sharing. But what I want to get across in all of this, Mario, in my opinion, is that why the hell would 8 Western banks be stepping on the price of silver to that degree? Because they need it to make weapons. And this military industrial complex is a whole hell of a lot more powerful and probably running the country to a greater degree than is our current president. And they're the ones pulling the strings. So if you allow 8 banks to suppress the price, in order to make weapons, well, that's a problem, but it never was a problem. Why wasn't it a problem? Because if you go back throughout my whole career since 1989, none of these entities across the globe ever stood for delivery. On COMEX, it represented 1% or less of contracts, and on the LBMA, it really never happened. It is something you can do, but these countries, 140-year-old LBMA and the COMEX in 74, most of these countries, the entire lifespan of both of these exchanges have been third world nearly. They haven't been sophisticated, coordinated, and motivated enough to stand for delivery, but they are beating us at our own game. They're beating us because they understand the significance of silver, that it should not be industrial, it should be strategic. You have a big movement in Canada trying to move it to that classification as strategic. You need it in so many of these applications. Why would 8 banks be stupid as a mud wall in a rainstorm trying to hold down the price when countries like China are going all around the world buying concentrate and doré, when India is buying 800 million ounces over the last 2 years? These are really important things to consider. And I think what you're witnessing right now here is these countries are wise to what the West is doing. It's similar to the new foundation of the BRICS Grain Exchange. In it, the gentleman who's running it said, look, we produce and consume more wheat than the West does, yet we don't have a chance to have any say in the pricing of it. That's done on COMEX. But with the development of this new exchange, that will change. They know what we're doing on all of the world's commodities, and they're beating us at our own game because of the ability to stand for delivery. They're standing for delivery, where 8.1% of the entire float in London is delivered in the month of August. They are basically saying, we'll beat you at your own game without firing missiles. We'll just stand for delivery. So I would simply say silver is the best investment opportunity I've ever seen in 34 and a half years of business. I don't think we've seen anything yet. If we can get above 32.50 and close, there's very little resistance between it and 50. And if you realize, to your point, that it's 6 times undervalued historically, well, that only puts it, I believe, at about a 16-to-1 ratio. I think, is that what you're talking about? You could argue that it's 11 or 12 times undervalued if you believe Keith Neumeyer telling us it's coming out of the ground at 7-to-1. Any way you look at it, you have an asset that is massively undervalued historically and geologically, that is seeing a massive expansion in uses in green and digital, ignoring the fact that military uses have a significant implication and are not recorded or reported. And yet you have stupidity of 8 banks trying to suppress its price when very sophisticated central banks are saying, thank you very much, we'll stand for delivery. So I don't think I've ever seen a better place. Decreasing supply above ground and below, increasing demand, and an artificial price that is distorting its historical and geological price ratio. I don't know if there's a better investment on the planet, and I mean that as God is my witness.
As the inventories of Western exchanges are getting depleted monthly, the cumulative trading volume on the Shanghai Metals Exchange and the Shanghai Futures Exchange are surging by massive amounts every month. The Shanghai Metals Exchange has surpassed the volume on COMEX and is now the world's second most heavily traded commodity exchange after the LBMA. At some point, these countries will decide they no longer want to be a part of the manipulated Western market, and they want to be able to dictate the prices of these commodities too. If the West fails to go with the flow, it will be left out, and the focus will shift to Shanghai, Dubai, and Moscow exchanges. Do you believe silver manipulation will be allowed to go on for much longer while countries like China and India continue to increase their stockpiles? When do you think it all ends and the discussion about revaluation begins? Please share your thoughts and comments in the comment section below. Also, ensure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notifications bell for more videos like this. We appreciate the support and hope to see you in the next one.